Hey family, it's your girl Hilda's Mood, and thank you so much for checking into the first ever episode of the Hilda's Mood Show. I am joined by my beautiful panelists. If everyone could just give yourselves a nice round of applause for yourselves. Thank you so much for being here. So we're just gonna jump right in. This episode, we're gonna be talking about claiming your identity and just what it means to be who you are. So we're going to start off with introductions, just very short. You're just going to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are, and include your pronouns. So we can start with Fabiola.
Hey y'all, I'm originally from North Miami, Florida. Um, I do a little bit of everything, anything that my hands get me into. Dexterity Fabi, that's what I do. From hair, production. I do heal the hair. I do a little everything to
Yes, she
say,
did my
but
hair.
I'm just hands on everything, and I'm very excited to be part of this panel because I'm used to doing panels, but I'm usually in the back of production, so I'm happy to be in the front to give people a little knowledge.
Thank you so much, Fabi. And do you would you like to share your pronouns with us?
Um, I'm she. That's what y'all asking about. Yeah, she.
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 Awesome. And next, Danny, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Danny. I currently live in Northeast Ohio, just south of Cleveland, small town called Youngstown. If you want to know more, let me know. And grew up in Western Pennsylvania. By day and my formal job, I work in information technology and pharma insurance as an operations and training manager. I'm also an intuitive. I do event planning. And then I also do some crafting stuff on the back end. I'll be in an upcoming movie and TV series next year. So currently
Okay,
in
congratulations.
filming production, and I'll be in a stage play next month. So in Columbus, Ohio. So I do a lot of things, but I also spend a lot of time by myself. So
Love that. Good
Yes.
balance. Good balance. And Keandra, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, y'all. I'm Keandra. Originally, I'm honestly from North Carolina. I was born in Fayetteville, but I spent a lot of time, most of my life in Winston-Salem, St. Forsyth. But I'm currently living right outside of Charlotte. I am a writer, and I know that spans a very broad spectrum, but literally, if it can be researched, it can be written about. I started out with product naming and product descriptions, and I started a business called Right Things to Say, RITE Things to Say. That basically, I felt like so many people around the pandemic had their businesses they were starting, and it was a lot of grammatical I was seeing, and I was like, oh man, I see a need there, and honestly, God put it on my spirit to reach out and do that. So I went from that to resume writing, and now I'm getting into email marketing, copywriting, which has been an adventure.
Yeah, it's a big thing right now.
Yeah, it's huge, and I'm super excited to really just delve into that. So outside of that, I'm an artist. I went to school originally for theater, as you brought, ANC graduate, and I went to originally for theater, so acting, singing, dancing, spoken word artist. So I'm just a creative all around.
That's so
And
awesome.
she, her, my pronoun.
She, her pronouns. Awesome. And last but not least, Corey, if you would love to introduce yourself.
Hey, how y'all doing? Hope y'all doing great out there. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Corey. I go by he, him, and I am my identity. I identify as confident. We'll dive a little bit more, into conversation. But some things about myself. There's three things in the world that I love doing the most. Everything that I've done, everything that I will do in the future is going to fall in these three categories. That's learning. I love to learn, teaching. I love to share and spread information. I feel like that's an intangible wealth that'll lead us all to riches. So that's super big on my list. And then I love to mingle. I love meeting new people. Love hanging out with the people that I know already, just fostering deep connections, authenticating relationships, I like to call it. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited for this conversation. Thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to diving in.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Corey. And I'll introduce myself. I'm Hilda, aka Hilda's Mood. Some people from Clubhouse may know me as Mango. But I use she, they pronouns, and I am actually bisexual. I'm the first American in my family. My family is originally from Uganda. This might be the first time they're hearing about my sexuality, so bear with me, y'all. But in terms of work, I delve into all different sides of entertainment. I'm a creative director by trade, but I love kids also. So I work as a nanny and tutoring and all of those fun things. And my goals are just to develop my country and try to build pipelines between Black communities worldwide because there's Black people everywhere. Um, so that's a little bit about me. And it's so awesome to meet you all again. And thank you again for being here. So, posing my first question to the panel, would you say that you know yourself? Why or why not? I'm gonna give y'all a little second.
Okay.
Yeah, Corey, go ahead.
Would I say that I know myself? I say it's defining my identity is always, oh, refining my identity is always a work in progress. I feel very confident in who I'm becoming, like I'm going in the right direction. So I would say yes in that perspective.
Nice.
I feel like I know
Fabiola?
myself.
Yes, I would definitely agree. Like, I definitely know myself. I've been through so much just to like figure out who I am and who I want to be. So like, if the world to end, I'm pleased by who I am right now.
That's good.
Good. I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
Keandra?
I actually am in a deconstruction phase in my life right now. I just turned 35 and I am a mother and she's going to middle school in 29 days.
Wow.
And, you know, I'm also, being in my mid 30s, but, I saw something that said like you feel like you're in your 20s until you get around people in their 20s and you're like, oh no. So I'm kind of in the midst of that too. I'm learning so much about like my mistakes and why I made the mistakes that I made and how I got to that point. And I'm learning some really messed up things about myself. I'm like, oh, I am not like the whole person that I thought I was. So right now, I can say that I'm getting to know who I am at this point in my life because who I thought I was, that ain't me. Like if you saw me a year ago, baby, that ain't me. So I'm working on it.
I love that. I love that. Yes, hearts. And Danny?
So, I've been on a journey for several years now. And one of the questions that I constantly have asked myself is, why am I like this? It's one of my favorite questions. And people who like know me, they'll legit hear me say like in conversation, or even I'm of a very silly like temperament, but I'm also like very serious at the same time. They'll say like, I'll say something silly and be like, why am I like this? Or I knew you were going to say that. But I think that it's an integral part of our growth as people, and also just to really find not only who you are, but your purpose for being here. Because I believe a lot in learning about who you are as a person tells you a lot about what you're here on earth for. And I believe each of one of us serves a very specific purpose. Some of us serve multiple purposes. But through that, I was really able to, I don't want to say find myself, because truth is, in the core, I always knew who I was, but I wasn't always confident in myself, my abilities, like my strengths. I knew that I had them, didn't mind using them, didn't mind sharing them with like my little core people. But I'd say probably the last like 5 to 10 years, I've really prided myself on focusing on really learning to use my voice, not just in my circle and for my people, but beyond that, and really using my intuition to tell me when it's okay to share and how deep to go, how far to go, how much. And I feel like part of my purpose here is really encouraging people to dig down to the root, to find themselves, to work through your childhood and relational traumas. And like, that is one of the best gifts that we can give ourselves as ourself, is to really do the work and recognize that never stops. It's a continual thing. And you won't be the same person next week, and you won't be the same person next year. And that's what we should be. We should not be the same. So hopefully I answered the question, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Oh, you did, and we thank you so much. That resonated very deeply with
Thank
me,
you.
especially I was just seeing ebbs and flows as you were speaking, because
Yeah.
that's I think one of the truest natures of life, and that goes into my next question, because we are multifaceted human beings, right? There are so many pieces that make us all that we are. So, what parts of your identity took you the longest to recognize?
For me,
Hmm.
honestly, I say my sexuality. I meant to say hey Sam earlier when you were talking, but
And she's a Gemini, y'all.
okay.
Oh,
So I think that it took me the longest to accept that I wasn't straight. Not because like I'm just struggling with it so bad. I think people have like these boxes, like the label bisexual, lesbian, you know, this, that, and the third. People fear what they don't understand, so they got to put something on it, a label on it so they understand. And I don't, I feel like that's people in my business in a little bit. Like I want,
right.
you know, who I am, like what I'm doing in my, spare time really isn't anybody's business unless I choose to share that with someone. So I don't really kind of walk around with a pride flag on or, any sort of like I don't introduce myself like that unless it comes up like it did, like it obviously would in this type of conversation. So it just took me a second to really be able to just like I've always been this way, but just took me a minute to like really stand on it and be a little more audacious about it because there's also a slew of causes behind it, if you will. It's good for me to speak up because I don't know who else is in the room that may have not thought to speak up about it. So now I say a lot more.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I stand with you 100%
Yeah.
with that because my sexuality took a long time. It almost felt like my friends were telling me, like, are you sure you're straight? Because it doesn't seem that way. And that's when I had to start asking myself some questions too. Fabiola, what about you?
I would say, like, I would agree with both of you guys. Like, I want to say myself as bi. I just love people. I just love different. So, like, people like, oh, why you? I was like, she's beautiful. Like, what do you want me to say? Like, it's the same as if it was a gay man. Like, love comes in different forms. So, like, how I express myself is just different, and just like being in the culture of like, because I'm Haitian, like they're like, oh no, you can't, no, you got to have a man, you got to have a child by a certain age, and like that was just never me. So like it took me a while to like figure out like what made me happy, and not just making someone else happy on top of my happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
yeah, it's just what was the question again? One more time for me. One more time. I just
What
got
parts
so
of your
invested.
identity? No, I love it. I love it because that was a word. But the question was, what parts of your identity took the longest for you to recognize?
Just loving myself to the
Hmm.
fullest, and like not just how like your family love you or like your friends in high school, because like I took the chance of like at 17 I moved out my house. I went to go live in Tallahassee, and where I had nobody, no support. It's the same thing in Atlanta, like just like completely starting fresh, and then like finding your tribe and finding people that actually love you, and like not like, because I'm a Leo and I isolate myself a lot, and I was trying to change that because I'll be the person like I'll let my phone go off, I'll deactivate everything. I just didn't want to be a part of nothing. But I'm like very family orientated, so like it changed to like seeing my like niece and nephew girls to like just loving, giving the love that I didn't give when I was younger, and showing them to like spread that genetic love to when they get like their kids or other friends to like love in that type of way, not just like what they
Hmm.
seeing from their family. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's beautiful and impactful. You got to love on the children. They are our future.
Yeah, they are the future, and you don't want them
Hmm.
to experience anything that you assume was, or like just always fighting what. Like I had seen something on Instagram, they were saying like when you go home, your childish self get triggered with your family, and that's why like a lot of people don't like to go home or like spend too much time with their family because like they trigger so much stuff in you. But I have learned to like, life is life. Like this is all you have. This is your family, and family comes in different form. But like if you could keep your blood family with you and like just take them as who they are and like explain to them like what it have done to you, or even if, like sometimes they go through their own trauma. You don't know that until like later in life. So it's just like learning all that stuff. It just makes life a little better. So like communication is really like just sharing your experience to say.
Absolutely. That's a word. That is a word. So, for Danny, what was the part of your identity that was the longest, that took the longest to recognize?
For me, honestly and truthfully, it was speaking my truth. I'm going to get emotional, and I don't like to do this. I can resonate a lot with what Fabiola said. I'm very big, and I always have been since a very young adult, on like therapy and healing and learning how to understand yourself, how to love yourself, like self-love, like all of that. And I will say, I found myself probably a good 4 years ago. I was married for 14 years. I found myself in a what was slowly, it was a very slow burn, becoming an abusive relationship. And I was born into trauma. My parents had a very, like, I can say sickening trauma bond. I understand what a trauma bond is, and I worked very hard. I went to college when I was 17, was on my own, so I can relate to you a lot, Fabiola. I feel like I'd love to connect with you on the back end. I, moved out of my parents' house by the time that I was 20, wasn't done with school yet, and I've legitimately been on my own ever since. So I prided myself on, I'm not going to allow myself to be in a situation where I reinvent the same situation that I was born into. And for a long time in my marriage, it was not that. But my ex-husband developed an unhealthy sense of self, ego. He had some mental illness, which we had always known and always worked through, and he took care of himself. But essentially, he stopped taking care of and loving himself. And it became very abusive, which went from like mentally, emotionally, and then that turned into physical as well. So it's very hard for me to open up about that space of my life. And it took me several years to speak up to people around me. And as much as I was an advocate for like healing and therapy and like really digging deep and understanding, the one component that I was not good at was sharing my story. I could share my story about my father being an addict. I could share my story about, my mom being very codependent. Like she wanted to do everything for everybody. And, that was her sense of self. And my parents both died before they were 60 too. 60 also, I should say. So in that realm, like for me, I had a moment where like, if I don't speak up and speak my truth and really work to make these changes and separate from the situation, I'm going to find myself right back in the same situation. I'm going to find myself in the grave before I'm 60 years old. And I have a 9-year-old son. And I think for me, my biggest thing was I'll be damned if I allow him to grow up to become an unhealthy version of myself or of his father. And for me, literally, like being able to, like this right here, obviously I'm not only an open forum, but with 4 other strangers, then obviously how many other strangers that are going to be hearing me say those things. And I will say it's literally been within the last probably year to year and a half that I've become more comfortable. Thank you guys. That I've become more comfortable sharing my voice and also being able to receive. So I'm that person that y'all throw in your little hearts up there. Like I will do that all day long. Biggest supporter, most loyal. But for somebody to give that to me is a very uncomfortable space. And life that I've learned, it's because I never really got that foundational support and encouragement and, uplifting from the core group that I should have gotten it from, my parents, from childhood. So I know I was very long-winded there and I don't want to take up all the time, but I would say that for me was probably the longest and the hardest part. But I will say I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm thankful for those experiences and I'm grateful for them allowing me to continue to understand why am I like this and how can I maintain control over the things that I can control and how I can turn that into a testimony and not necessarily being a matter of a victim or whatever the case may be.
Whew.
Sorry, I know that was heavy.
My heart. No, that was
trigger warning.
beautiful. That was amazing because even in that short sharing of you sharing that with us, you're speaking to so many people that are also in that space of being afraid to speak their truth.
Well, I say
Um,
to anyone who is afraid, do not be afraid. And if somebody doesn't want to listen, or they don't want to be receptive, or they don't want to be empathetic or try to understand your situation, don't keep talking. That's not your person to let that out to. And then you really have to learn the art of detachment and walking away and finding your safe spaces. But don't be afraid to use your voice.
Thank you. I personally, I know everybody needed to hear that, but I needed to hear that on so many levels. I can definitely resonate with just not being able to speak your truth to the people that needed to hear it in time. So just thank you so much for that, Danny,
Thanks for
and your
allowing me to
transparency and your strength to share that with us
Thank
here
you.
on this panel. And last but not least, Corey. Hard to follow, but what was the part of your identity that took the longest to recognize?
Honestly, the most challenging parts of myself would be charisma and intelligence. So in my journey thus far, I found it as this trifecta or this tri thing. I'm a very conceptual and analytical thinker. So we have like trying to find ourselves in a world that wants us to conform and be identified by their labels, but then we're also wanting to become our authentic selves and really kind of go against the grain in a way to be unique. I'm very confident, but because I'm confident, people say I'm cocky. Now I'm questioning my confidence because I don't want people to a certain way how I move in society just by being myself. So I would say, in my charisma and intelligence. And the intelligence side, I didn't. I'm not a college graduate. I dropped out of college 2 times. And I still was able to find my way, find my tribe, find support to find, to be more comfortable in who I am and how I want to go about the world, to live life in a way I see fit. Same thing for my brother. And, there was dissonance there. When I was graduating from high school, seeing my other friends become societally, I guess, socially successful, and I'm feeling bad about my decision, but it doesn't have to be, it shouldn't be that way. That's where that conformity piece comes in. So I would say for sure, being myself, that was challenging for some time, but I'm glad to say that I've overcame. I'm standing strong. I'm standing firm in my beliefs and who I am, and I want to help other people do the same. So it was a journey.
Good for you, Corey.
Appreciate it.
Sounds really good. Um, I have the question sheet on here, so I'll just ask some of the questions while Heidi get back. So as one of the questions like, what do you think when you hear put your race first? So I'm just gonna go first. As I said, I'm Haitian, so like growing up before, like no one wanted to claim as being a Haitian. It was always a tough thing to like, I'm Haitian, I'm proud. A lot of people didn't appreciate it at no point. Like people were getting bullied. And it got to the point where like it was so much controversy into like the culture until music got into it. That's why I love music. Like once people's like, oh, Zopal, blah, 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 everybody's like, oh, yes, yes. And I think it came to like any type of culture or music just really brought a lot of people together. So that's why like music is one of my therapy. It's everything to me. Everything. Like it makes me happy. Whatever mood I want to be into, it just really get me there and it brings me into a different atmosphere. And that's why like anytime now I'm like, yes, I'm Haitian. Like that's the first thing. It's like, oh, where are you from? I'm from United States. I'm from Florida, but my parents are from Haiti. And I'm so like every day, like I'm just happy. Like I just want to like engulf myself into my culture. Like I still haven't been to Haiti before. And that's like one of my life goals to like go there, like experience what people live, like know how like how my mother and father was raised and the actual location and like just breathing the air and like breathing the people and knowing the people as me, Fabiola Pierre.
That definitely resonates with me because Like with race first, I don't think I was taught race first. I'm pretty sure I was probably taught, you're a little girl, and then at some point you are a little black girl very soon thereafter. But now, growing up and obviously identifying as black, but really, African. I mean, it's like so many different things: African American, Black American, so many words for it. But I'm black. Wherever I go, I'm still gonna be black. And born and raised in America, my nationality would make me American. But I mean, in this day and age, I'd probably be hesitant to go to Haiti or anywhere in Africa or any like predominantly nation of color and tell people I'm American because for obvious reasons. But um, you know, it's not something I walk around like it's my calling card. Oh, being American anyway, like it's my calling card. But being a black woman is my calling card.
Yes,
Like,
indeed.
see, this is who I am, and all that is connected, with being a black woman, regardless of where I am in the world. And when you were talking about like your roots and your parents being from Haiti, but you haven't been, I just recently started to look up my family history. Like my mom and I, we had roots down in Waysboro, North Carolina, which you wouldn't know unless you were like on the way to the beach or something like that. I had to go through there. It's a very small, nowhere town, but lots of history there, and being able to go like to the register of deeds and like see land and like houses that my family actually has down there, and being able to go to the library and talk to the library like historian. I'm not sure if that's the correct term for the position, but going into that room with all of these books and like letters. I was holding letters from like the 1600s like in my hand, and seeing how they wrote and seeing what they did and things like that, and figuring out, is this my family? Is this my fourth, fifth, whomever, and actually coming to find out that my family has a family church down there, a Reverend Ezekiel. I can't think of, I'm not sure which last name it was, knowing that I'm connected to like 5 or 6 different last names, and actually being able to go to that church and have some connection to my actual blood relation. And then we have a family cemetery behind the church. And the family cemetery, I'm seeing all my ancestors all at once. And I got to, I don't want to say meet, but at least see where my fourth and fifth great grandmother are laid to rest, and my fourth great grandfather is laid to rest. It's like, okay, so I have a place. So when we're speaking in terms of identity, going back to Israel and kind of finding my roots, and that was just like ground one, honestly, because also I found out through that a number of people migrated into Concord because it's like an hour away, so it's like one of the next towns over. So me even being here right now, when I've been in North Carolina all my life, and I didn't know anything about Concord, but Concord means small, and I've never really been here like that, and to end up here knowing my ancestors actually settled here too, I'm excited to kind of delve even further into that process and connect and identify more and more with all the time. So yeah, sorry, I'm a rambler, but
No, that's so beautiful.
That was
Hey Heidi, I was
great.
just making sure you went down. So we just read the question about putting your race first. So go ahead.
Love it. Thank you so much. And I apologize for the technical difficulties. Um, but
I would like to
yes,
go next.
yes, please, Corey.
All right. So excuse me. So I think it's kind of out the box, but I think that race is sort of a barrier. Um, Personally, when we explore to learn more about ourselves and what we're connected to, whom we're connected to, it seems like the tree, the strand of our DNA, just becomes a lot bigger than just one box or label, black, white, Spanish, etc. So, I mean, I feel like, things are progressing, but until we're able to, as a society, accept this idea of race as a confidence in our heritage, history, and culture, then it will remain a barrier, because for me, 2020, I want to say, was my first time experiencing the Gurifina side of my the Guatemalan side of my family. So I'm going through life thinking I'm only just black, and then I go to Livingston, Guatemala, and I'm seeing my grandmother's estate. I'm learning about the history of ancestors that I wasn't even aware of. So just like that trip alone just helped me realize how much larger than life we are, and the history and the ancestry that we're connected to. So I mean, when it comes to race first, socially, I understand it. So, I represent, Black African development, African American youth, things like that, because that is the tribe that I'm most associated with, by color, experience, lived experiences. But overall, like I've had great experiences with all different, what we would call races, you know what I mean? And it's definitely when you connect person to person, human to humor, it transcends any label, any stereotype, all of that stuff. When you have an authentic connection with someone, once it's real, it's real. It don't even matter that. I can't say that I'm judgment free. Um, because I have that pride, I have that confidence. I want to see people like me succeed as well, and there are certain crimes, that I won't accept when I'm associating with certain people. You know what I mean? Everything is, for most part, a lot of things are forgivable, but there are some occasions where they're not redeemable, and that's okay to feel that way. Because at the end of the day, we associate with our preferences. We design our life around the preferences, the people, things, places, and ideas that we believe in the most, and who aligns with those. So that's where I'm at with it. So yeah.
Sounds really good. Who want to go up next?
All right, Danny, what's your take on it?
I was having a little bit of issues. Sorry. So, my take, I feel like while it may be a little bit the same, it is a little bit different. So, I'm biracial. And I grew up in a town that I would say was predominantly white, but not only predominantly white, but also very political in a sense. Small town. So, like, you had to know this person's dad or uncle or, whomever to really quote unquote be somebody, which is why I left town as soon as I could when I was younger. So I feel like it took me a little while, not only in learning myself or knowing myself, but also to navigate like who I was when it came to like different races. My father was an only child, but my grandmother was one of seven. So like for my dad's family's perspective, like his mother's family was big. He had a lot of cousins, but we didn't necessarily grow up surrounded by them. I was fortunate when I was a younger child. I grew up a lot around my grandmother, my great aunts, my uncles. Like when they say your ancestors, and I can yes, like I can feel them all around me legitimately. And I had very close connections with them, even though I was a young child. So they were all very fairly older. So my dad was an only child. And I feel like for as far as like my Black side of the family, like I knew my elders very well, but as far as like cousins that were my age or whatever the case may be, I kind of had that stigma in a sense where I wasn't Black enough for the Black people and I wasn't white enough for the white people, and it never really stopped me from feeling like I didn't belong or didn't fit in, or I just kind of navigated and found my way. I was that girl in high school that like I was friends with people who were athletes. I was friends with people who were in theater. I was friends with people who were in band. Like I didn't have a clique. Like I just kind of like had a whole slew of people. I always feel like I'm that person that's not here for a long time, but usually for a good time and not in that way. So I will say I'm very much an advocate of speaking up like on equality. And obviously like I'm a minority Black woman. I work in corporate America. I know for a fact that I'm not paid what others are paid. Not, and my position is very unique in the company that I work for. There's not another position that's comparable to it. But I can guarantee you that as far as the leadership scale goes, that I'm probably one of the most underpaid there. But I'm very, very big on speaking up and, using my voice. And I know when people look at me often, instead of kind of pinning me to a certain category, it's a question mark. It's what are you? When I have a phone interview, when I go in for a job interview and they're like, Danielle, and I'm like, oh, that's me. And they're like, oh, Danielle. And Fabiola and Keandra, they're shaking their head. Corey, I'm sure that you have or will run into those scenarios as well. But a big thing for me is really just about being able to educate and help people understand better from a perspective, again, if they're open and receptive. But they'll always think about what you say. Remember that, y'all. When people feel like you feel like they're not listening, they're always going to think about what you say at some point. So you're still planting seeds, even though you're not seeing them, start to bloom immediately. But I will say that for me, it's really just coming from an evolved space and being able to be open and being able to speak from a place of truth and understand that people don't have to receive it, but it's okay to say it. It's okay to speak your truth and share your experience. I don't think I answered that one all the way, but that's what I got.
No, it's definitely good enough. We're gonna jump on to the next question, and it's gonna bounce off back of what Corey said, and it's about when building your community with others, how important their identity is to you. So, like for me, that's like how Danielle said, like I was never like part of one crew, but I fucks with everybody. Everybody fucks with me. Like I was like, I'm cool with the bad kids, the good kids. I was part of a dance crew. Like the only reason we were able to dance because I had good grades and like I was, still on top of my game as being a Black woman and a Haitian woman. And finding that tribe that not only fits you but made you feel good based on what you did and not just based on what like, oh, you did this and it made them feel good and I want to stay there. No. And that's, I could have never stayed into one tribe until like probably when I came to Atlanta. I found my group of friends that I can cry with, I can cook with, I can have dinner night with, I could talk about like the entertainment business without like somebody saying, oh, this and this, like just like finding people that really appreciate you as who you are with your flaws, with your perfections, just like accepting who the person is as their self also. And then like just like, do you see yourself in 10 years with this person? Like no matter like if their group of friends don't like you, like can you still be around all those other people and still feel good about committing to this group of people that you're gonna grow with, make money with, and like even like have your family be a part of it too. So that was like one of my biggest thing. And like I try not to like make that identity like too much because like you don't know parts of people based on what you see. Because you can see them like as being an interview person or seeing around like their folks that built them as a person, and it opens your mind and your sight of that person. So like when you meet a person, like it's good to like meet them, and I feel like it's dating too because a lot of people just we just like, no, you need to go out of town. Like, do you know this person's scared of sharks? Like, do you know what are their flaws? What are they scared of? What they make them happy? And I think that's what love comes into also. So love is just not loving somebody and that's your partner for life. Your partner can be your best friend, someone that just really cares you as a person and like to the end of like who you truly are. And even if you're growing, they grow with you and you grow as one together in your tribe or your community. So the next person, go ahead. I just wanted to give my
So
feeling of
layers,
that.
and there are so many layers. Like I didn't even think about like how you scooted it right into like dating and love and everything too. Because right now my priority with connection to people right now is like networking slash friendship. And so in general, I get along with everybody. I mean, really, like even if you're like other people are like, oh, I don't really rock with them or that and third. I really try to take and see for myself because it's kind of like you don't know what other people's intentions are when they're talking
That is
about
so true.
or don't like about another person. And some people are just crappy people, and eventually you will see that, or you will feel that, and you can move accordingly based on that. But as of right now, me with my business, right things to say, I'm not as established in that as I want to be because I know there's like a list of things I need to do to establish it in a more serious manner, which I'm totally capable of. But I know me and, my little lack of focus, I'd rather be around some people who are business minded, entrepreneurial minded, who are a little bit further along, or maybe even a lot further along than me in business. Um, so that I can learn from them, hopefully, anything they have to share, or just kind of, how they say you're the average of the five people you're around the most. And as of right now, I spend a lot of time by myself. Like I don't really know anybody in this town. I'm getting to know a couple people when I go into Charlotte and things like that. But I really focus kind of on that aspect of it. And even in friendship, I have friends. I have friends I've had since childhood, and the older you get, it's not like going in the sandbox and sitting down and being like, I like this shoe. But it kind of almost is sometimes too. You see somebody like, okay, I love that shoe, you know.
It is.
But
Sometimes you got to come back to your youth. Like you always have to
right,
fall back to your youth of like really finding the right people for yourself.
exactly. And I don't mind who you are and how you identify as long as you're not trying to hurt, yourself or anybody else. And if I feel like you're trying to hurt yourself, I'm going to point you to the nearest therapist. At this point, I definitely used to be the person who was like trying to do and say and fix and all that, but it's hard peeling that back off of me so I can get back focused on myself because of course you would do that and you would get wrapped up in someone else's identity or how they identify and trying to help them get to that place or stay in that place. And then you look up at 6 months to a year and you don't even know who you are or what you're doing. So I'm not really requiring that people come to me whole and just full, but about 80-90% would definitely help also in that particular second, especially with dating, which I don't do at this point in time. Um, but as I'm learning, whenever I do decide to step back out there and able to, like you said, get around their family and friends and figure out like who this person really, really is. Because a lot of times I date from intuition. Like if I feel good with you, you make me feel good, and we're bouncing, good stuff off each other, then we're going to the moon. But that's not really, I don't know if that served me the best. So being able to, make sure that I'm keeping at the forefront of people I meet who they say they are and seeing if their actions line up with their words so that um, I'm not really getting caught up in that and forgetting about my own identity.
Keandra,
Thank you.
I feel like I just want to make a quick comment, even though that might not be the right thing, but I feel like you said you've been spending a lot of time by yourself. And then hearing you say in the beginning that you were really working on really like refinding yourself or like refining yourself. That is the best space for you to be is by yourself. So I'm just going to encourage you to continue being in that space. It's safe for you right now. And you're doing a lot of exploration. And I love that for you.
Thank you. And let me tell y'all something. I used to be I am still a social butterfly, but I kind of like turn it on and turn it off. Like for people to know me, and I say like, oh, I'm really socially awkward. They're like, what? Not as much as like, not
I
as
be
much as
feeling the same
as I am.
too.
I'm
I'm
pretty
feeling
socially
it
awkward.
too.
I have a slew of things going on in my mind, even if I'm in the middle of a party or in a restaurant or at Walmart. It's a lot going on up here about who's around me and what they're doing and things like that. So as I've gotten older and being in this isolation, deconstruction, isolation mode, like I'm right in the thick of it, and it's
But guess
okay.
you're going to come out of that mode and you're going to like love it. And then you're going to it's going to become addicting. You're going to like look forward to going back into that mode the next time it comes around. Trust me.
One thing I want to say, isolation doesn't have to be always being inside your house. Isolation can still be going outside, being in the park. You just don't have to invite somebody. If somebody want to invite themselves, that's cool. But now you have the authorities like, oh no, I just want to chill by myself. Then like, promising somebody something, and then now you're guilt to like spend time with this person, and you was not mentally ready to even do that at all.
Yes.
So
that's the people pleasing nature of us. And Keandra, the people pleasing or the like doing this for somebody because.
Yeah. And that's a big thing about being a Leo for me. And I have learned to like tweak that based on what I'm giving and what I'm getting back from it. And not to say like it's an even share, but like if I'm constantly doing that, you don't know my love language at all.
Absolutely.
Exactly. You're not giving people a chance to actually even get to know you for real. You think you're giving up this information and giving up this stuff, and you look up. I had to say that while one of my previous relationships, I was like, did this person even know me? They like me? Like we were together for a hot minute, but it got to looking like because I kept meeting their needs all the way up here, they never can even get here.
Right. It's a defense mechanism or a traumatic response in a lot of cases. And also, like, I think I learned the most in my journey that people pleasing even though we are not selfish people by nature, we are very giving. Like our level of giving sometimes is in an unhealthy capacity, right? We've all been that person where we've overgave or overextended, knowing good and well, usually in an afterthought, maybe not just thinking before you did, or being intentional about what you're giving and where you're giving. And that is time, energy, effort, like material things, whatever the case may be. But it's a very selfish act when we're doing that, which makes it a little bit toxic when we're not being intentional about how and when we're doing it.
So,
Absolutely. And
Ms.
then that,
Danny, how important is the identities for your community? Then I would love to hear your perspective as your.
So I feel like from that perspective for me, it's really very, very similar to Keandra and even Fabiola in a sense. It's very similar to an aspect of learning and navigating the how and when, because I do have a servant heart by nature. When people ask what my love language is, it sounds really bad, but it's literally all of them. I'm very balanced in all of them. And it took me a long time to learn that. Also being in a very narcissistic, abusive relationship in the past, I really thought gifts were my love language because I liked gifts. They made me feel good. But I had to learn and realize, like, I liked gifts at that time in my life. They made me feel good because it made me feel like the situation was going to get better. It was almost like a manipulation. So truth is, while I like nice things, I am not a materialistic person at all. I'm very much of a minimalist. And this is coming from someone who lived in a 2,500 square foot home, and every room was decorated with a vocal wall and each little thing in place. And I live a very simple life now, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like, those things are nice, don't get me wrong, but I left every last one of them behind because it didn't make me happy. So I feel like a lot of it for me, and I'm probably going off track now. I feel like I definitely am going off track from the question, but I feel like a lot of it for me is just really staying authentic to who I am and allowing myself to be in my natural state and use my natural gifts and my interactions, and really just being able to, similar to what Corey said, being able to not only teach, but also learn. Like, I thirst for knowledge. Like, I will read, I will listen. Like, I ask a lot of questions, never from an interrogatory space, but also pretty much from I just want to know more. I love people. And sometimes the fact of loving people can be a great distraction for me. So it's really being able to navigate that from a place of authenticity.
okay.
Did I answer the question?
Yeah, that was solid. That was solid.
Yeah.
That was solid.
But this is such a dialogue that we're having. It's such good dialogue. I'm taking so much away.
I'm gonna try my best not to be long. I'm so nerdy about this stuff.
Me too, Corey. That's why I try to like chill out a little bit.
Yo. All right.
Kind of like also trying to listen because I know that like hearing what others have to say. Like, Danny, I love stories. I love getting to know people.
I'm a TED Talk freak.
I'm in.
Yeah, that's hot.
Questions and everything, but I actually prayed right before this, and I was like, God, please let me listen more than I talk, and because I can get into this, and as much as I want to ask some of these questions too, and all that, but I want to know, what y'all say about all.
What makes you tick?
Right, what
That's
makes you
real.
tick? Because it is very important.
Good book.
Seriously.
Facts. All right. So I guess I'll go ahead and share my thoughts. So I'm gonna approach it from a technical perspective. So relationships and dealing with people is very tricky because it's a lot of the unknown. You know what I mean? There's us as the individual, there's the boundaries that we set, there's our preferences, then there's the other person and what they're projecting to us, and what image that creates for us of them in our minds, and that goes in each order. And then in the center you have us, like, together. So there's you essentially as the individual, then there's me, which is the other person, and then there's the connection between us, and then the projection in life that happens to develop that relationship. So from that point, it's really, to me, like, consistency is big, and transparency as well. if I can't be vulnerable and honest with my friends, with my community, with my peers, then I do not consider that as a progressive relationship. We're not going to go very far. I have very strong boundaries. Like it takes several years for me to call someone my friend for that very purpose. I need to really understand, what is our connection? How are we adding value to each other's lives? Is this going in a space where I'm using you more because you're giving me something and I'm not giving you something in return? Am I asking you questions and you're not giving me feedback at all? Am I sharing more of myself with you and you're kind of like just using me? What is the actual dynamic here? Um, Most of my really close friends, we tell each other we love each other. It's like, yo, bro, man, I love you at the end of the call because it's not about at that point. Like I said, it's not about we already know what it is. You know what I mean? We've built over time. We've been consistent. We've been who we were for each other since day one. And if there's been some chaos, some disruptions, me and my friend had what we call a fallout for like 6 days because we're mature enough and we understand the value of our relationship. We came back together and was like, look, bro, you was tripping. Yeah, I was tripping, and we was able to say that. It was a one-sided situation, but we was able to come to terms and recognize, like, you know what, our relationship is a lot better, man. We've been through too much. There's so much more for us to accomplish, man. Let's continue this thing going on. So I would say at the end of the day, for me, again, the identities is extremely important. Emphasizing on transparency, vulnerability, and honesty for sure, and having healthy boundaries. Absolutely.
I love that, Corey. I'm 100% in agreement. I agree with you in that approach as well. I love the boundaries, though. I love the
Boundaries are
boundaries.
so, and that's what your family too. Everybody can get them.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
No. I
could tell
mean,
a
when
little
it
story
comes
with that,
to
but I digress.
when it comes to like uh, making sense of the world and with the relationships, one of my favorite topics is support because we most of the time that's based on emotion and desire. But we can find those things else. We're all living proof that we can find it if we seek it. You know what I mean? Outside of the space where it's not necessarily given to the capacity that we desire. You know. So I'm gonna stop there as I don't want to go to the moon with it, but yeah, that's my take on it. What about you, Hilda?
I want. So yeah, first of all, I want to thank you guys because this has been such an insightful conversation. And I started this show because, in the same vein as Keandra, I just wanted to start listening more than I speak. And so for myself, in terms of like creating community, this is a part of it for me where I just want to start understanding what different identities mean and what it means to maneuver in those spaces. And, if we can fulfill each other in those spaces. Because what I've found, especially in terms of like friendship, and building community in spaces of friendship, a lot of the time, we might get caught up in similar likes. We like the same thing, or we're in similar places, and we mirror each other in a lot of ways. But then when it comes down to the nitty gritty of how can we support each other, are we actually good for each other? Can we fulfill each other? Is the way that I express my love and myself going to be conducive for your well being, and vice versa? Because a lot of the time, if we haven't done that analysis, it doesn't align perfectly.
Mhm.
And that's one thing in navigating my 20s, and especially navigating friendship in my 20s, that has been like a harsh realization where, you can love a person and y'all are like basically twins. Y'all like the same things. Y'all do the same things. And yet y'all are completely different people. And the ways that y'all need to show up for each other is completely different. So then you start doing a disservice to each other and maybe not even being honest with yourself and each other about your capacity to to be there, to be a friend. Um, and so that's been my biggest enlightenment in terms of building community, which is why I really got to a point where it's like I genuinely want to understand. I want to understand different people. I want to understand different walks of life. Um, because a lot of the time, because we share identity with people, we feel as though we're in the same walk of life as people. And I think that's one of the biggest disservices that we have to each other, because even on this panel, we're all Black or Black identified. And it's like, we're all having completely different walks of life. Even the way that we define our Blackness or how our Blackness shows up is completely different. So having those conversations and understanding each other, so I can listen to Keandra, I can listen to Danny, I can listen to Fabi, I can listen to Corey and understand. And it's like, okay, I don't have to agree, disagree, right, wrong. It's not about that. It's just understanding you and then doing the work so I can understand myself, so that we can then figure out how can we work together, whether it's we're going to be friends or we're going to be business partners, or I can support you in this way, or I need to love you from afar. We don't need to be in the same space.
So we can
um
put you on the corner, ride you around with that last part. Just being able to understand, just like stop for 2 seconds and just hear what they have to say first before you've already made
mhm.
the judgments or you're listening to defend. I was really bad about that. I'm still working on it. Like, just understanding, just give it a second to go, oh, that's what they're trying to say. That would like save the world. They would save the world. Seriously. It would save
It
so many
would.
conflicts and
But
drama.
unfortunately, in our day-to-day lives, we don't have a lot of spaces like this that are
Mm-hmm.
safe, where everyone can express themselves and come to a space of understanding.
For
And
sure.
that's my goal with the Hilda's Mood Show and just Piff panel in general, is to get us to a point of understanding.
Right.
It's not a debate space. Very much so understanding different sides and different ends of the spectrum, so that we can all come to a place where then we can learn to maneuver. Because I can't learn to maneuver you or even maneuver myself if I don't understand.
That's the
So
truth. Jenny said
that's
earlier,
my 2
ask herself, why am I
cents.
like this? And I have that written down
Why am I
somewhere.
like this?
Why am I like this? It literally will open your whole world up. Just start asking, why am I like this? How did I get like this? You know, and I think a lot of times it starts to, if you're getting a negative result or negative feedback on like a constant basis where you got to go, oh, okay, this is negative every time I do it, or I'm in a negative space every time I get like this. So why am I like this? And that's a really great place to start as far as learning your identity, what you're identifying with for real.
Absolutely.
So, Hilda, what's the next question you want to get through since before the live goes off?
Yes, I was going to say we're about to do our closing remarks. We have a few minutes left. So I genuinely just wanted to open the space. Any advice that you would give to yourself 10 years ago? If you were sitting in a space with yourself 10 years ago, and you could have a conversation in terms of navigating, maneuvering identity, what would you say?
I would just say, just be yourself, be happy, and it's okay if they don't fuck with you. It's all right.
Period.
Okay. I would definitely say spend more time with yourself and by yourself. I used to really not notice that I was alone. I wouldn't have called it codependent, but I didn't notice I was alone. And I had a good time. I would go out by myself and everything, but spending more time with myself and seeking more knowledge about who you are for real. So I couldn't be moved by being with other people. If that makes sense.
Hmm. That's real. Danny?
So I think about this 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was just newly a mom. Well, becoming a mom. I was pregnant. Oh, I love this. I love this. Let your life speak. Let your life.
Hmm.
Um, so I would literally tell myself to like always stay true to yourself and don't lose sight of your own self and your own objectives based on what's going on in the world around you. I really did struggle when I became a mom, losing myself a little bit in my child. And of all innocence to try to not recreate the same pattern with my child that was created with me as a child. And then I lost myself a little bit in that. So that's the advice I would give. Never lose yourself in the sake of what's going on around you.
That's real. Respect, respect, respect. Man, that's a tough one. 10 years ago, I was 18. um, I would probably tell myself that life is open. There's very little control we really have. and it's okay to just go with what you feel sometimes. You know, to navigate in life is gonna be your sorry. The outcome of your life is mostly based on your decisions. So try to navigate it to the best of your ability and be open to learn from things, from mistakes, from successes, from relationships that go well, and vice versa. Just be open and just try to stay as authentic and true to yourself as you can. You will change. Things will often change, and that's okay.
Nice. I love that, especially that last part. Things will often change, but it's okay.
That's a great way
I
to close.
Yes, I had to sit
yes,
with that.
absolutely.
Definitely good.
So thank you all again for being here with me on my first ever episode of the Hilda'S Mood Show. You guys
Mhm.
were amazing. Y'all held it down. I would love to invite you to future episodes. Thank you so much, Shay, for inviting Danny and Keandra. Thank you,
Y'all,
Fabi and Corey, for holding it down, for being
Thank
here.
you. Thank you for the
And y'all
A
are
invite.
pleasure, and kudos to you, Hilda, for such a great idea and a great platform.
Yes,
And thanks for
indeed.
hosting us and allowing me to be a part. It was a pleasure.
most definitely.
absolutely, thank you. We do that. We're going to be doing this bi-monthly, so it's going to be every other Sunday. So definitely, I will be adding y'all to the mailing list. So if you're ever interested in our next topics, you're free to be on our panel.
Thank you. I just wanted to share
Thank
this book with
you.
everybody. This been helped me throughout like getting to know myself and just, just wanted to share. I told Hilda about this. It's called Let Your Life Speak. Listen for the voice of vocation and just like truly knowing what you want in life. And like sometimes it takes you in these little places, but like it's like ingredients to the whole recipe in life. So there you go.
Love that, Fabi. Thanks for
Love
sharing.
a book.
You're welcome.
I love books. So I love a book suggestion if y'all ever have book
And at
suggestions. I
Goodwill,
love
go get y'all dollar and some cents of books at Goodwill. It's
absolutely.
still knowledge.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for being here, and thank you so much for everyone that is tuning in to the first ever episode of the Hilda's Mood Show, where we are highlighting nuance and building bridges to understanding. Um, y'all have a great Thursday night for everyone that's watching it, and y'all have a great Sunday for us recording. Thank you so much to Shay,
Bye.
to Sled, and everyone at Piff
Bye.
Radio.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.